First things first, I think there's a cutscene. 2 cutscenes.
Glancing over my records of the late last century, I am faced by the events of a certain bitter winter. A murder in a carriage as it sped through dense London fog in the dead of night. Though the victim and the perpetrator were the only ones inside, there were multiple witnesses to the crime itself. However, none could have imagined at the time that such a seemingly obvious case as this would end in such a horrendous manner. My friend, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, once said of the incident, "I believe that perhaps that case was indeed the prelude. The beginning of a long concerto that impressive Japanese student and I were to play together."
Amazing. Is this really just a railway station?
Railway station or not, I've never seen such an enormous building before.
And look at all the steam locomotives. This country is incredible.
I feel like I'm dreaming.
So this is the capital of Great Britain.
So, where to?
Oh, hello.
Climb aboard. I'll take you wherever you want to go.
In that case, the Supreme Court in Whitehall, if you wouldn't mind.
My pleasure. I suppose you're visiting students from abroad, eh?
Yes.
Thought so. Well then, I hope you enjoy your stay. And welcome to the centre of the world, Great Britain's mighty capital, London.
Before we meet Mr. Baroque, we gotta meet a certain Chief Justice. Alright, 18 February, 9:21 a.m. British Supreme Court, Lord Chief Justice Office. That's right, he's no longer Heart Vortex. What an incredible place. It's so imposing. It's almost suffocating. This place is breathtaking. It looks like a fortress. There are some stone buildings like this in Japan now, of course. But they've only been built in a few short decades since we opened our borders to the outside world. An authentic example like this has quite a different impact, wouldn't you agree? A far cry from the wood and paper most of our buildings are constructed from. It's certainly unfamiliar. Best waifu! But I think there's more to the differences than just construction materials. What is this place again? This is the Lord Chief Justice Office, Naruto-san, in the Supreme Court of Great Britain. The Lord Chief Justice. We had instructions to report here at this time if circumstances were different. We were supposed to let the Lord Chief Justice know that we had arrived from Japan. But Kazuma can't. No. So instead, we are here in a different capacity. As envoys to report the news of Kazuma-sama's death. Yes. And have delivered his or her message, an envoy's duty is done. So, we'd have to return to Japan. if we want to remain here in Great Britain. I have to take Kazuma's place as the law student selected for the study tour. Yes, which means you need the requisite qualifications as a lawyer, which is what I've been studying for. Here in Great Britain, it is the Lord Chief Justice who appoints lawyers. So that's the second reason why we're here, to have you officially recognized as a lawyer. It's the only way that we'll be able to remain here in London. I hope I'm up to scratch. Ah, good morning. Sorry for keeping you. There he is! Oh, I trust you aren't too exhausted after your long voyage from Japan? It seems I'm 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 47 seconds late. My apologies. Oh, no, don't mention it. We're never happier than we're standing around with nothing much to do. How fortunate. So, introductions. I'm Mel Strongheart, Lord Chief Justice of the British Empire. Ugh, I feel like a little mouse under an elephant's foot. Come on, Mr. Naruhodo, don't be a mouse. Oh, it's an honor to meet you, Lord Chief Justice Strongheart. I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, from the Empire of Japan. Well, Mr. Naruhodo. Welcome to London, the capital of our glorious British Empire. Yes, thank you. Chunosuke? What's this Chunosuke? It's Shrunosuke now! Anyway. Look at these menacing metal giants facing each other across the room. I believe they're suits of armor. Oh, right. I thought maybe they were like the lion dogs we have in Japan guarding shrine gates. No, not at all. In fact, in Europe, suits of armor like these are always possessed by evil spirits, you know? And they roam around in the middle of the night. Really? Is there nothing you don't know, Miss Susato? This book tells me everything I need to know about everything. If you're ever unsure, just ask. Where did she get that incredible tome? That's what I want to know! Where'd you get that? Just look at all the naughty books packed together on these shelves. They go from floor to ceiling. And they're all books that you couldn't hope to come by in Japan. It's like a dream. Yeah, a very bad dream. They're not all about British law either. There are books about the judicial system of other Western nations. France, Germany, Spain, Holland. What about Russia? Why do you ask? I was wondering about asking the Lord Chief Justice how you say wardrobe in Russian. What do you think? What does that have to do with Russian law? I think perhaps it's a thought best abandoned. This must be the Lord Chief Justice's desk. I believe it's made of marble. It looks more like an over-the-top tombstone that's toppled over to me. I think that's your fanciful imagination at work again, Mr. Naruhodo. It feels like everything that's normally made of wood and paper at home is made of bricks and stone here. I know. That's why this place feels so overbearing, I'm sure. Legally be prosecuted wardrobe? Is this some kind of clock? Actually, I think we might be inside some sort of giant clock. But those gears are larger than anything you find on a steam locomotive even. It's eerie. Do you think clocks are some sort of hobby of his? The Lord Chief Justice, I mean. Guys, he's like standing right here. Well, boys do enjoy fiddling around with machines, don't they? I'm not sure you could fiddle with cogs that size, and I'm certain you couldn't call him a boy. Still, it's amazing how little noise the cogs make, considering how large they are. There's actually something quite soothing about their precise rhythm. I really like the theme in here, though. Sorry. Honestly, all the music's good in this game. So, what are your impressions of our capital so far? How do you like London? Oh, help? I've been so nervous ever since I got here that I can't remember a single thing about the city. It's simply splendid, isn't it, Naruhodo? Mr. Naruhodo, sorry. Oh? We had a wonderful view of some of London's streets from the carriage on the way here from the station. Everything is so impressive and grand. I must say, I'm almost lost for words. I'm glad to hear you like it. The city boasts tramways, pipe water, and gas, even cables supplying electricity. We spearhead every revolutionary new technology in the world. Every visitor in London is astounded. Oh, yes, astounded is the word. Thanks for saving me there, Susato-san. And everyone seems so jolly and full of vigor. That doesn't sound like London to me. Yes. There's much excitement about the upcoming great exhibition we'll be hosting here in London. Great exhibition? Cultural and technological achievements from around the globe are to be exhibited here in our great city. It will be the greatest spectacle of its kind in history, and will make Paris World's Fair look like a toy shop. Gosh, I can hardly imagine how magnificent it's going to be. Great Britain's capital city is nothing but magnificent. London is the center of the modern world. Even if you do say so yourself. The sun will never set on our great empire. Perhaps it is fate that in these progressive times we welcome visitors from the land of the rising sun. Lord Chief Justice, I think you were expecting a student of law for this study tour, weren't you? Absolutely. Mr. Kazuma Asogi, if my memory serves. That's right. The British government has already been telegraphed a full report on the situation. I understand the young man lost his life aboard the steamship bound for our shores. That's amazing. The news reached him before we even arrived. Only 90s kids remember! My country naturally extends its deepest condolences to yours. Oh, thank you. And you honored this appointment specifically to inform me of the news? Yes. We are here in the capacity of envoys from Japan to report the sad news in person. They tell me you Japanese are a people of protocol and courtesy. I see that it's true. And it is with some regret that I must inform you that the death of the young lawyer means the study tour arrangement can no longer proceed. If you would just hear us out, Lord Strongheart. What do you have to say, madam? I know we all love Heart Vortex, but I think Mel Strongheart still works pretty good for him. It's about the study tour. Mr. Naruhodo here would like to make a proposal. Would he now? Well, Mr. Naruhodo. This is it then. The moment of truth. Before we do that, let me present my badge! Lord Strongheart, may I show you this? To accept this item, issue a receipt, examine it thoroughly, and make a formal statement of my findings. It requires something in the region of 24 seconds of my time. Sorry? Does the item warrant 24 seconds of my time, Mr. Naruhodo? let's leave it for now. Okay, I presented the armband. Sorry, it's not the badge. I have to present the armband now. I love how now that I have the armband, I'm not allowed to present the student badge anymore. The thing is, Lord Justice, Lord Strongheart, I was wondering if perhaps you would consider allowing the study tour to go ahead. Wait, can I examine it? An armband I inherited from Kazuma that identifies the wearer as a defense lawyer throughout the Empire of Japan. Oh my god, he inherited. I'm making myself sad again. Sorry, I want to examine this. These are the scales of justice. They're a symbol of defense, aren't they? Yes, that's right. The scales are a symbol of fairness, to show that all are treated equally in the eyes of law. They are a warning to those who enter the courtroom without an impartial mind. But if they're the mark of the defense, it would be more auspicious if they were weighing more heavily on the not guilty side, I think. Very impartial, I'm sure. Get selected again, or... Oh, nope, it's the same thing. And if you look inside, there's Kazuma's name. Oh my god, my heart's hurting again. The lawyer's name is embroidered on the inside here. Look. Kazuma Sogi. This was his band, of course. He had his heart set out to study... He had his heart set on this study tour in Great Britain. I'm sure he would have found the truth he longed for here. But he lost his life before he even had the chance to see the place. I have such a strong sense of his hopes and dreams when I look at this armband, though. I don't know what happened to the badge. He's still wearing it. I just don't have it. Like, I can't just use it or anything. Don't misunderstand me. Britain would ideally like to see the tour go ahead. But without a lawyer from your country, there's nothing to be done. Well, in that case, what if there was someone else? Another lawyer from Japan, I mean. Is there something I don't know? Only a single lawyer was invited to Great Britain from your country, and that was Mr. Sogi. At least, that is what I've been led to understand. Well, the thing is, this really isn't going well at all. I just can't seem to find the right words to say this to this man. Mr. Naruhodo. I could ruin things here if I'm not careful. What am I going to say? If there is someone else here from Japan who could be described as a lawyer, it's... Can I select all these? Let's pick Miss Sato. It can probably only be... Yes, Miss Sato. An unusual introduction. But I presume you mean this charming lady beside you. You're a lawyer, are you? That look she's giving me. After all the days of hard work she's put in to help me study, I can't let her down now. I think that's quite enough joking. Don't you, Lord Strongheart? You're the one who made the joke! My real answer is... It's me. I can do it. Is that so? I mean, I don't actually have any qualifications as such, but... No qualifications, you say? And yet you still claim to be a lawyer. Man, you're good at this introduction, Naruto. I have acted as a lawyer in court before. Only once, as it happens. And I had Kazuma to help me. And I was the accused. But glossing over the details. I've been spending every spare moment on the journey here to Great Britain studying. I've learned all about British law and court proceedings while I was on board the SS Brea. The voyage from Japan is some 50 days, I believe. Not what you might call a full education. To become a qualified lawyer here in Britain, not only do you need a university degree in law, you must also complete several years of training. I realize it's far too short of a period of time, but I can't just go back to Japan. Kazuma, Mr. Osogi's journey had only just begun. Coming here on this study tour was all he thought about. I have to carry on and do everything he planned to do. If you know, then you know. I know it must sound like I have an overly inflated opinion of myself, but I would do anything to prove that I have what it takes. Any test you care to send me. Oh, you probably shouldn't say that. Just one chance. That's all I'm asking for. Please. 31 seconds. Sorry? Your opening statement there, Mr. Naruhodo. It was 31 seconds long. Not too brief, not too protracted. A perfectly judged appeal, I would say. Which is a skill that would stand you in a good stead as a lawyer. Oh, thanks. So, you're willing to put those words to trial, are you? Well, I'm all for entertainment. Huh? Well, let me ask you one thing first, sir. Yes? You say you intend to do everything Mr. Osogi planned to do. Are you firmly set on that path? Well, yes, that's my intention. Naruhodo? I see. Am I imagining things? Or does this expression just alter a fraction there all of a sudden? Very well. You have your wish. I'll give you a chance. A test to become a specially certified lawyer. Whether you pass or fail is entirely down to you. Really? So, what form will the test take exactly? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, what do you consider the role of a lawyer to be? Well, defending people, of course. Well said. So, let's have you defend someone. Huh? Your timing is perfect. In fact, there's an apt trial about to begin later today. No advocate has been appointed for the defense as yet, so this will be welcome news. Today? Straight away? If you manage to secure a verdict of not guilty, you'll have passed my test. What could be simpler? Sir? How do I get myself into these situations? Well, could I ask what sort of trial is it, Lord Strongheart? Yes, good question. I remember. It's a murder trial. A murder? An extremely simple case, I understand. You really can't lose. It's not simple, it's about murder! That's easy to say. But I should mention, just in case. If the defendant is found guilty, he will of course be sentenced to capital punishment. Capital punishment? He'll be put to death? Here in Great Britain, murderers are sent to the gallows without exception. Wow, so the main line always kind of skips over what happens to the guilty. And now the localized version is letting it happen, that you know that people are going to get executed. Presumably, you read that much in your short C-based introduction to British law. We can't possibly agree to such a test. We would be toying with a man's life. I am the Lord Chief Justice, and I've decided it's acceptable. But what if the guy ended up being actually guilty? I hate this test. I said it before when I got to this part, but I hate this test. But you can't do that, can you? He's the Chief Justice, so he can do whatever he wants. That's what he says. There's no need to overcomplicate this. All you have to do is ensure that you don't lose. So the defendant may live or die, depending on how well I perform in court? If I lose, he'll be hanged. Mr. Naruhodo, you've come to me claiming to be a lawyer. If you want me to take you seriously, you need to prove you're willing to do a lawyer's job. And you say you intend to see through the will of your compatriot, Mr. Asogi. I would like to understand just how far you're willing to go in order to make that happen. He's testing my resolve. What's the matter? You've fallen silent. I'm sorry, but time is pressing. The trial begins shortly. I need an answer from you now. What's it to be? What do I say? Do I agree to this absurd test? What if I say I won't do it? Alright then, if I have to give you a decision now, my answer is... I can't do it. I can't get the words out. 15 seconds. Huh. Your decision-making needs work if you want to be a lawyer. That was too slow. So, it's as I suspected, is it? Sorry? You have noble intentions, but lack the resolve to see them through. The test is cancelled. Thank you for stopping by. Go and acquire your ticket for passage back to the east tomorrow. This conversation is over. Yes, Lord Strongheart. Thank you for offering me a chance. Mr. Naruhodo. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sato, but what could I do? It's all right. I understand. You do? It's not an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances, but resolve has absolutely nothing to do with it. What are you trying to say, madam? I think what Mrs. Sato means is that no matter how badly I like to be recognized as a lawyer and stay here in Great Britain, to risk another man's life by treating his one and only chance at a trial so trivially would be utterly unforgivable, and I feel exactly the same way. I'm about to speak some spoiler here, but I theorize. I have a feeling Vortex is testing to see if Naruhodo is malleable, I guess, in a sense. Like, when we come into this trial, it's not going to go the way Vortex wants it, basically. Okay, I'm trying to explain this without spoiling this so hard. But it's not as straightforward what's going to happen in this trial, and he wants to see that if he'll still go through with the not guilty verdict despite what's about to come up. Because if he ignores what the truth is, I have a suspicion he's trying to test to see if he can be, like, used. Take that as you will with what you know about later on in this game. I'm sure the defendant won't see this trial as a test, as some kind of experiment. A lawyer may fight for his clients in court day after day, but for each one of those clients, the particular day they stand in the dock may be the only chance they have to fight to prove their innocence. No, I was wrong. I'm not qualified to do that job yet. I'm sorry for wasting your precious time, Lord Chief Justice. I don't know, those were some powerful words. Wait, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, was there something else? It's approximately 20 minutes by carriage to the Old Bailey from here. If you leave immediately, you should still be there in time. But I just said that... I was quite serious in what I told you. The defendant in this case has literally no one to advocate for him. What? At this point, he can't hope to find someone to represent him. The trial will begin without a defense. And if that happens, there's only one possible outcome. he will receive the most severe sentence the judge can pass down. But that's awful. But that is the truth. Why does it have to be like this? Please don't expect an answer to every question. The cold, hard truth of the matter is that there is only one person now with a chance to save this man from a very miserable end. And that is you. I'm really his only hope? So, what do you say now, madam? Me? What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? You said it wasn't an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances, and I agree. But in my estimation, it is purely and simply a matter of resolve. Oh. Our time is up here. I have a meeting to attend. I must leave in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So, venture into our great city and enjoy ourselves. Anyway, I'm thinking about my theory. So, that was just one of my theories, but seeing this dialogue again, it's just, there's so many things that could be going on here. So many things you can infer. He's gone. The Old Bailey. If we're going to do this, Mr. Naruhodo, we must leave at once. How about we talk? Mr. Sato, can I just ask you something? Careful! From this position, I can perform a Susato takedown in an instant. I know. Mr. Naruhodo, you heard Lord Strongheart. The trial starts imminently. If I need to throw you, I will. You know, you could just say, I think we should hurry to the courtroom. If you need to ask me anything, it had better wait until we're at the Old Bailey. Or we could talk on the trip, I guess. Anyway. February 18th, 9:45 a.m. The Old Bailey defendant's antechamber. Oh, thank goodness. We're in time. There's still 15 minutes until the trial begins, and we have no idea we have nothing. I never knew a horse-drawn carriage could go so fast. I thought my thief were going to rattle loose. Tsutano's tossed into the Old Bailey. Did you hear what I said to the driver when we climbed aboard? Get us to our destination in 5 minutes, driver, and there's a guinea in it for you. It's one of my favorite lines from the Herlock Sholmes stories, and it worked quite perfectly. Do you have a guinea? I'm not sure why you're so pleased. I thought we were going to die, and we had to pay gold for the privilege. Well, at least we arrived here before the trial started. Yes, I suppose there's that. Anyway, I don't understand it. The court clerk said the defendant should be here, but there's no sign of him at all. There isn't? Huh. So this is the Old Bailey. Even this room for defendants to wait in is grand. Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm feeling tense, that's all. This place gives me the same sense of foreboding that I remember from the Supreme Court in Japan. An oppressive air, almost as if the building itself is going to crush whoever is about to be sentenced. Feels like only yesterday that I was the one about to be crushed. Yeah, whoever the man you're to defend is, I imagine he's feeling very alone at this moment. Top of the morning to you, madam. Sir. And there he is! No longer Cosney Mango Doll. What are you doing? Follow me here. Things are fair desperate, are they? Sorry? Would you look at those expressionless faces? From the east, are yous? He's Scottish. I don't know the Scottish accent. We're from Japan. Yes. Oh, Japan is it? Right, say no more. So, how much do you need? Oh no, we're just here because... No need to explain, fella. I've been here myself, so I have. No place to go, nothing to eat, barely a penny to your name, and all while in a strange, faraway land. All of them? Well, actually, we haven't found a place to stay yet, no. I played this all in the Japanese version. This is the first experience on the localized, though. 'Tis grand, 'tis grand. Let me start by giving you 1,000 guineas. Say nothing now. 1,000 guineas? Please, Mrs. Sato, you don't have to shout. But 1,000 guineas is enough to build an entire mansion in the most prestigious area of Tokyo. What? Give me that money! 'Tis nothing to me at all. I like to ensure I have sufficient funds to weather a rainy day, you see. I've enough wealth to buy the city of London 2 or 3 times over. Could that much rain even fall in one day? Well, even so, we couldn't possibly accept such a large sum of money. The coin flicking is a 3DS gimmick. That hit me in the eye. Don't get me wrong, fella. I'm not giving it to you, no strings attached. I'll be wanting you to do something for me. Oh? To be honest, it's a little embarrassing. The trial that's about to begin, you see, is for me good self here. I'll be in the dock. So now, what I want you to do is come along with me and stand there beside me. Officially, you'll be my lawyer, but that's just a little detail now. Oh, well, the thing is... Don't worry a ting. All you have to do is stand up there next to me. Nothing more. Otherwise, you see, the trial is going to start without me having any kind of representation at all. Oh, you poor man! So it was true. The Lord Chief Justice wasn't just making it all up. I'm terribly sorry to have to ask, but does that mean you're the defendant in this trial? I mean, he's in this hall, so yes. Blustering blazes! Do you not know who I am? Me! One of London's biggest names? No, sorry. We've only just arrived in the city, you see. Well, I see. I suppose it isn't altogether impossible. Man, I wish I knew... I wish I could find that spot in the voice, because I'm thinking of Scrooge McDuck, and I can't think of how he speaks right now. Well, just next to Hyde Park, that is in the center of London, is another beautiful park. Sorry, a park? What? 'Tis called Begilded Park, full of blossoming flowers in the spring and singing birds and whatnot. I donated it to the city, so I did. An entire park? In central London? A city of smiles. That's my vision for London. And there's nothing Magnus Begilded wouldn't do for the city and its squire old people. Magnus Begilded! Ah! Is he Irish? I can't tell. I thought he was Scottish. Did I read that wrong? Oh, frick, I can't do an Irish accent. Mimic Jacksepticeye's. Oh my god, I don't even know. That's amazing. I mean, really extraordinary. But now they've got the goal to say I'm a good-for-nothing criminal. Me, Magnus Begilded. I'm gonna have to sit down and watch a bunch of videos after this. What is the matter with the London police, I ask ya? Ha, ha. Oh, he's breathing. He's just panting. I thought he was laughing. Alright, don't pass out. I struggle in many accents. Mr. Naruhodo, look, I struggle learning Japanese as it is. Perhaps now would be a good time to introduce ourselves while the gentleman catches his breath. good idea. Mr. McGilded, the thing is... Well, thank you, I appreciate it. I don't think the people who actually speak in these accents appreciate it, though. But I already put a disclaimer. I'm only doing this to differentiate who's talking. We're actually here in London to study British law, and I never said I was an expert on any accents. We're law students, on a study tour from Japan, you see. So, if you don't have a lawyer for the trial yet, and you'd be happy to put yourself in our hands, we'll do our... What was I after saying, you daft idiot? You daft idiot? Oh no, I'm giving you 1,000 guineas to stand up there next to me, haven't I? Well, yes, but I wasn't really offering to just stand up there next to you. British? Ain't it? Oh, I think I see what's going on here. Sorry? I know what you're thinking. This Chancellor fella claims to have more money than the Queen. But if that's true, why the blazes can't he hire the finest lawyer in all of England? But he did it. That's the only explanation. Because he did it. Well... well... I want to say this because I'm an ass! Yes, exactly. What now? Well, like you said, if you have all that money but you don't have anyone to represent you in court, there's no other logical conclusion than that you're guilty of the charges. Naruto is so blunt! He's so honest. Well, you'll call a spade in the East, so you do. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean any offense. I still can't express myself very well in English, you see. And I'm never sure what's acceptable to say and what isn't, so... Is that so? Because you sounded fluent enough when you were telling me about what a blackguard I must be. I'm terribly sorry. I can't say that I blame you for thinking me, fella. It is a little strange, to be honest. Why you don't have a lawyer, I mean. That would be the fault of the Reaper. Sorry? Did he just say Reaper? The Reaper. Aye, the Grim Reaper of the Bailey, Lord Baroque Van Zeeks. He's the prosecutor. He said the name! The prosecutor is the Grim Reaper? Also known as Estinian Van Zeeks. I'm gonna keep calling him Estinian Van Zeeks because that's funny. When Van Zeek stands for the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. And to this day, in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, the accused has been damned. What? No, he sadly has none of those. He has a sword! So it's reached a desperate situation, where there's no one willing to stand in defense against the fella at all. You could say he's a living legend of the Old Bailey. Goodness, Lord Estinian Van Zeeks. He must be an exceptionally talented prosecutor then. If you guys don't want me to keep calling him Estinian, I can stop. Talented isn't the word you're looking for, madam. It's cursed. Cursed? What on earth? The defendant is summoned, and his counsel. Please make your way into the courtroom. The trial is about to begin. His counsel? Well, that would be me. Oh, 'tis time. Well then, fellow, don't let me down. But I don't know anything about the case. Oh no, he's hot. Don't do that. Don't make him imagine he's in his underwear. Because he's hot. You haven't told me what happened. Until you show your face here, I'd made up my mind, so I had. Sorry? I decided I'd have to defend myself in there. How would that have worked? But then you made an appearance. A student of law, would you know? 'Tis no accident. I can assure you of that. 'Tis fate. So don't get cold feet now, please. Laundry broke! I literally know nothing about the case, or about this man who stands accused. In fact, the only thing I do know is that I can't just turn my back on him. I be luck of the Irish or something. I can't find that accent. It's fine. Mr. Naruhodo, this man has no one. He'll have to stand alone in that courtroom, armed with nothing to defend himself. He's tall! Yes, something that Kazuma would never have allowed to happen. Counsel for the defense, what are you doing? If you're late for the start of the trial, you will lose your right to stand. I'll be right there. It's happening then. My first trial in the British court. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma. Insert a kazoo noise. Because I have no idea how I'm going to manage this. And he's gotta fight frickin' Baroque. Oh boy. '18th February, 10 o'clock a.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. Oh! Hey, could someone do me a favor and check, can someone do me a favor and check a screenshot of Naruhodo's back from the 3DS version of this particular scene that I'm looking at right now? Because I don't know that knot on his back. I don't think that was, I think that's, yeah, I want to check because I could have sworn the knot was supposed to be white. But for those who don't know, in the artist notes for Naruhodo, after what happened in case 2, Susato sewed a sort of good luck charm on his back. It's mostly just a word of bad luck and evil and stuff like that. And that knot that you're seeing on his back right now, that's where it would be. But I thought it was supposed to be white. So I'm curious if I'm just misremembering that being there. Can you DM me? Wait, where'd you send it? Where am I looking is the question. His curse is so strong it turned it black. Yeah, it'd be easier just to DM me because I don't want to keep digging. I'm sorry I'm making a momentary pause there, but I'm just really curious. So the reason why I said this is that the models in the first game is different from the second game. So, in the first DGS game, the knot was not there after case 2. But the knot was there in the second game. Just because the models were slightly different between the first and the second game. So they... That makes sense. So they did take the time to come back and put it in then. Oh no, I meant a screenshot from the 3DS version, not the Chronicles version. But hold on, I'm getting several DMs now. Where'd you DM it? Yeah, I was looking for the 3DS version, not this version. Oh, dang, they did add it in. Oh, you should post it in the chat so they can see. You should post it in the chat. You definitely see. Oh my god, I really appreciate that it's there now. Holy crap, thank you. So this is the highest court in the Great Britain, the Old Bailey. I'm so happy that it's there now. The centuries of history in this place is palpable, isn't it? It's so different to the Supreme Court in Japan. It feels both imposing and serene at the same time. The atmosphere almost makes words redundant. Put it in the Twitch chat, the screenshot of the 3DS version. Whatever the country, determining a person's guilt or innocence is always a solemn affair. May I say something, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, yes. What? No, Naruhodo, no! Not the swimming eyes! Your eyes look ready to pop out of your head again. I know, but I just can't help it. There he is! Estidian Van Zeeks has arrived.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are here today to determine the guilt or innocence of Mr. Magnus McGilded. I now call upon the counsel for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed.
The prosecution is fully prepared. Thank you for putting that in. That must be the Reaper of Old Bailey. He really does look fully prepared to dispatch his next poor victim to the underworld.
Counsel for the defense, you appear to be Eastern. Do you speak English?
Huh? Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. But he asked if the defense was ready. And I couldn't be further from ready if I tried. Those eyes please me, Nipponese. They shroud your fear, your doubt, your trepidation. They run wild, clinging to some phantom notion of courage. The quintessential look of a sacrificial lamb. Ugh, a cold shiver just ran down my spine all the way to the tip of my toes.
Now, Mr. McGilded.
Yes, my lord.
You stand accused of murder, a capital offense. You could be sent to the gallows if found guilty. Are you sure you wish to entrust your defense to this foreigner?
As I've already said, my lord, 'tis a grand thing to give opportunities to the young. Even if the fella is a student from some little island off in the Far East. It is not the British way to ignore the dangers to yourself and give these less fortunate a fair chance. I'd like to think that acts of chivalry do the great British Empire proud. Listen to Mr. McGilded. What a fine gentleman London has in him. Did you hear that he donated £5,000 to the government the other day? Mother, please, maybe go play in the Gilded Park. Who brought a kid to the court? It seems as though everyone in the public gallery is firmly behind Mr. McGilded. That's definitely welcome news. And he certainly has a way with words. I'm surprised he couldn't convince anyone to defend him. That's still kinda odd.
Eloquently put, Mr. McGilded, and the most laudable sentiments. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm sure I need hardly remind you that you 6 members of the public have been selected for your impartiality. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, my lord. If the task is to send rotters to the gallows where they belong, I'm more than ready. At the manor, his lordship always says we should dispose of rubbish promptly. Naturally, I agree. Are we ready?
For the best juror, it's juror number 3.
Ha! Any criminal here will soon be wishing they never set eyes on me.
Also, who allowed him to have a knife in the courtroom? I thought that would be confiscated. I feel a chill.
Oh, don't mind me, my dears. I'll just be getting on with my knitting. Must finish these mitts for my grandson.
Mr. Naruhodo, these people are...
The jury, yes. That's something we don't have in Japan yet.
That's right. I've only ever read about it. But here in Great Britain, the court's final verdict depends on the opinions of the 6 jurors. The judge passes a sentence, according to the law, but the jurors determine guilt based on common sense.
Based on bias.
So the defendant is ultimately judged from 2 completely different points of view.
I'm just knitting away, dears. Don't mind me.
But how exactly do the jurors give their verdict?
That I don't know, but... I'm sure it will become clear as the trial progresses.
Yes.
Prosecutor Van Zeeks.
My lord.
It's been a number of years since we've seen you here in the courtroom. I thought you renounced your fame.
I know as the Grim Reaper of the Bailey, my lord. Infamy rather than fame, I would say. But yes, 5 years have passed since I last spread my wings in this capacity.
So what brings you back? Is there some change of circumstances of which the court should be aware?
I leave that to your imagination, my lord. So the Reaper has been out of action for 5 years. Why did he have to choose today of all days to make a comeback?
Don't lose heart, Mr. Naruhodo.
As you wish, sir. The court nevertheless welcomes your return. Now then, opening statements, I think. A summary of the case, if you please.
Certainly, my lord. As your lordship is aware, this case of is a case of overwhelming simplicity. We must be the only ones in here who aren't aware. The incident took place in the late evening. 3 days passed. The hour was some minutes after 10. The victim was a maker of building bricks known in the community as Thrice-Fired Mason.
Sorry? Thrice?
He was a very accomplished craftsman. The bricks he fired were said to be almost indestructible.
Ooh, that's unfortunate. The victim's corpse was discovered in an omnibus in service on the streets of London at the time. A dagger that had been thrust into the victim's abdomen is believed to be the ultimate cause of death. Sorry, I'm trying a different Baroque voice than what I used from the Japanese one. So it's gonna be a little bit of time until I settle on something. Here is the autopsy report from the investigating medical officer at Scotland Yard.
Thank you, counsel. I shall accept that and the photograph as evidence.
Autopsy report. A report prepared by the Scotland Yard coroner. It gives the cause of death as internal hemorrhaging as a result of a single stab wound to the abdomen. Crime scene photograph. A photograph of the victim taken on the omnibus. No, I'm not doing a Snape voice for him. The knife in his abdomen is clearly visible, but his face is partly obscured from the view by an old crooked hat. And on further item of evidence, the prosecution wishes to submit these as well.
And these are? Oh, good lord! Is that blood, counsel?
Yes, my lord. Seized by a policeman who arrived at the scene. These gore-soaked gloves were taken from the hands of the accused when he was arrested. What? Mr. McGilded's gloves had blood on them? Look, all you gotta do is look up Estinian from the critically acclaimed Final Fantasy XIV, and you know exactly what Baroque Van Ziek sounds like because it's the same voice actor.
Yes, I will accept these as evidence as well.
Defendant's leather gloves. The leather gloves the defendant was wearing at the time of the incident. There is a blood stain on the right glove. How did I get into this? I'm back into a corner before I even started. Continuing. According to the driver of the omnibus, there were 2 passengers traveling inside his vehicle at the time. Only 2? Obviously, one of those passengers was the deceased brickmaker, Mr. Mason. The other was the accused, Magnus McGilded.
Well, rather damning circumstances to say the least. Defendant, what say you?
Well, of course, I have no recollection of such a thing. Mr. McGilded. To be sure, I rode the omnibus that evening. But whenever I'm in a carriage, I'm taken with a fierce tiredness, and I always succumb to it.
Are you claiming you have been asleep?
'Tis the motion of the carriage, my lord. Little so it is. And when I opened my eyes again, 'twas a desperate sight before me. The body of a man I'd never laid eyes on before in my life.
Now I ask you, what good-hearted soul wouldn't rush to help a fella bleeding from his stomach?
I wasn't about to start worrying about me gloves now, was I? I reckon out to give the man a hand. So the blood got onto the gloves then, after the man had been killed. Unfortunately, that statement of the driver's is only the beginning. What? That's not all of it? There were multiple witnesses to the precise moment at which the brickmaker was fatally stabbed.
Order!
When the killing took place, only the victim and the accused were inside the carriage. There were witnesses to the crime. This is not just a case of compelling evidence. It's the nail in the coffin for the accused. No, come with your eyes.
Thank you, counsel. The circumstances of the crime have been made quite clear. I think we will hear testimony from these witnesses, first of all.
Your wish is my command. Bailiff, bring the witnesses in at once. Beppo! I think Beppo is still Beppo, right? Witnesses, your names and occupation.
Well, my name is... Well, everyone calls me Beppo.
He's still Beppo!
I drive an omnibus in the East End.
Bruce Fairplay. I'm a banker in the city. And he's Aussie. Well, he's got an Aussie accent. My name's First. Lady First. I make hats for gents. Let's begin by confirming the facts. 3 days ago, at a short time after 10 o'clock in the evening, all of you present in the stand were in an omnibus and witness to the affirmation incident. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, sir.
Quite right. Yes, sir. That's right, sir.
Very well, then. Let's proceed to your formal testimonies, please. Each of you will tell the court precisely what you saw.
I mean, he was called Lady First in Japanese too. Like, but the spelling was different. He was literally called Lady First. Like, I think that was like, what I just typed in is exactly how it was spelled. Like, they didn't really try that hard in the Japanese version. So, Yeah, he's still the same, but at least it looks like an actual name. Fairplay is still the same. I don't think his first name is the same, though. I can't remember what his first name was anymore. Okay, what the witness saw.
It was the last bus of the evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well.
The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other into the bus. Then out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts.
That's right, he stabbed him. I screamed, I did. Couldn't help it. As soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus and then I saw it too.
Oscar Fairplay! It's Oscar! Yeah, no, Bruce Fairplay was Oscar Fairplay.
Unambiguous testimony, I must say.
Exactly, my lord. So they just kind of got rid of the actual real name in the Japanese version and just went straight on with Lady first and localized. These men witnessed the incident in the omnibus with their own eyes. And then I fell back to the Japanese baroque, but I guess I like it there. I'd like to ask a question, if I may.
Yes, Counsel.
Well, this testimony makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Why not? Well, the incident took place inside a moving carriage, didn't it? As has been clearly stated from the outset, yes. Well, in that case, how could those two witnesses possibly have seen what happened? There's no way they could have seen the inside of a moving carriage. Oh dear. Oh no. How quaint. I'd read that civilization in the Eastern Island nations was a good century behind our own. But you're here in London yourself. Are you really so ignorant about our omnibuses? Huh? Tell me, my Nipponese friend, have you even traveled in an omnibus? Uh-oh. Well, no. We, only arrived in London this morning. No matter. I've arranged for us all to see for ourselves the actual scene of the crime, that is. Well, what? What do you mean? The actual scene? How? A carriage is designed to be moved, after all. Presumably you understand that much. Yes. The omnibus in which this bloody crime took place is here today, in this very building. Here? What? The entire carriage? Bailiff. Bring forth the stricken omnibus. Oh yeah, he's a huge ass in the first game. Although, how much the localization allowed to let through is another question. So that's an omnibus. The omnibus. I can't believe they could bring something so enormous in here. Great Britain courtrooms are amazing. As you can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and carried up to 8 passengers. Four passengers seated inside the enclosed cabin and another 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows that the best views of the city's architecture and sights are to be had from the top of an omnibus. Isn't it freezing cold right now? And I should point out that to our foreign guest, that there is a skylight in the roof, allowing a view of the interior from the seats above. A skylight? Oh! The penny drops at last, I see. These 2 gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats on the omnibus when the murder took place. That is how they came to witness the grim incident. Through the skylight. Ugh, that makes perfect sense.
Well, Consul, this is a first. In all my years behind the bench, I've never experienced the crime scene itself being brought into the courtroom.
There are a number of important clues remaining inside the carriage, my lord. I would like to submit the omnibus itself as evidence. That is the prosecution's wish.
Very well, I see no reason why not. This omnibus is hereby formally accepted as evidence.
The omnibus! The 8-seater omnibus that was the scene of the crime. There were passengers both inside the carriage and on the roof deck that night. Excuse me. I can't believe it. The entire crime scene entered as evidence?
Yes, Great Britain is simply extraordinary.
I could help myself a lot by giving that omnibus a thorough examination, seeing as it's here.
Let us continue with proceedings, then. Your cross-examination, Counsel.
Pray, don't expect this Nipponi stray to understand the intricacies of a British court's cross-examination rights. Calm down, Baroque. All right. My first cross-examination in a British court. Focus, Ryanosuke. Focus. I got your back, boy. I don't remember what I did. Oh, that cut-in is good. What the witnesses are. We'll look at that in a moment. Actually, let's let the music play while I'm doing this. Brickman. Knife whilst journeying on the omnibus. Died to eternal hemorrhaging as a result. Okay, I gotta read some stuff. This is definitely blood, isn't it? Not the most pleasant sight to be confronted with on our first day in London.
Well, nothing will come of grumbling now.
No. By the way, is Mr. McGilded right-handed?
Yes, I believe so. He was toying with a coin in his right hand a little earlier.
Pity. If only he had been left-handed.
I think blood on either glove would be fairly incriminating, really.
Alright.
Well, let's open the door and go inside, shall we?
The scene of a murder. It's horrible. That's blood that's soaked into the seat. The victims, obviously.
Yes, and that seat would be clearly visible from the roof deck.
Would you really stab somebody in full view of the other passengers like that? I wonder.
Well, it was after dark, and there was a lamp up in here, so perhaps the culprit couldn't see anything outside through the skylight.
Whichever way you look at it, it doesn't seem like it was a planned attack. Do I not get check marks? Oh, great. I don't get check marks. This seat looks reasonably soft, but it's actually rather hard when you sit on it. And only just wide enough for two gentlemen to sit side by side, really.
Of course, an English gentlewoman would be dressed in such finery. It would be quite impossible for her to climb up to the roof deck, so she would have to be seated in here.
A woman in a kimono would have the same problem. Women's clothes are very impractical, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about, like, women's jeans having fake pockets? That's a poster for the great exhibition that's due to start 6 months from now. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole exposition.
Oh, the Crystal Tower. It's under construction already, I believe. People all over London must be fizzing with excitement at the prospect of such a grand event.
I don't either! I hate it! Thanks for the posture check. That's a poster for the great... No, it's not. Is it? Oh, it is. Okay. Okay, nothing else. It's quite a large skylight, isn't it?
Yes, quite large enough to afford a good view into the cabin from the roof deck.
Not that crystal tower! And there doesn't appear to be a handle or catch of any description. So I suppose it can't be opened from inside the cabin, at least. I don't think there's any... Is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else. Okay, let's just go. Let's get out of here.
Have you seen enough? Let's step back outside then.
By the way, Phoenix Wright Omnibus, baby. Anyway, let's look at the seats up here.
So this is the roof deck of the omnibus. Oh, you must have a wonderful view of London streets from up here.
So people sit all the way up here on a bitter winter nights for the cold air rushing, with the cold air rushing past them? And they have to pay money to do so?
I can't imagine how cold it must feel.
That just made me think of something horrible. Can you imagine being dragged around the city in the freezing cold as a punishment?
Perhaps that is the real price you pay to stay out late.
Do I the skylight? Okay, it does. You can certainly see inside the carriage through this opening, that's for sure.
Yes, and there's a lamp in the closed cabin. So I'm sure the witnesses would have been able to see quite clearly.
That's not good for us. Yep, the Phoenix Wright Omnibus was a thing in the Japanese version too. I love it. I appreciate the little Easter egg. I think that's all I can do. Alright, let's start pressing, I guess.
Hold it!
Yes, I think it was sometime after 10, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, sir. That's quite right, sir. Yes. Ever so cold. It was freezing, in fact.
You had 4 passengers on board at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right, sir. Not all traveling in the same parts of the bus, of course. No. And there were no other passengers when the incident took place. No one alighted, for example. You're quite right, sir, with that, sir. No other passengers like that. Nope, none.
So nobody fled the scene of the crime then?
I have to say, the boss insisted on running, he does, every evening. That last bus of the day. But I do wonder sometimes if it's altogether worthwhile. Yes, sorry to say.
Poor Beppo. Give him a fire, man. Get a furnace or something. What do you mean by that? Give him some hot tea.
Well, what with it being so cold and everything, and only making 20 pence on the run, you see. Yes, I spent that much at the pub on the way home, just trying to warm up again.
Poor Beppo.
Hold it!
And you saw them through the skylight in the roof of the carriage. That's right. When you sit up on the top deck, the window's right there on your feet. There was a lamp on inside, so I had a pretty good view. The 2 of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. But there's not a shred of doubt in my mind that it was Mr. McGilded.
How can you be so sure?
Well, how can I put it politely? McGilded is a gentleman of rather small stature. I wouldn't have mistaken him for anyone else. Let's not forget that when the vehicle came to a halt, the only people inside the enclosed cabin were the deceased Mr. Mason and Mr. McGilded. There is no room for doubt here. Ugh, I really wish there was.
Hold it!
you actually saw the moment, the exact moment it happened? Didn't I already testify to that? Or a fair Duncan, hard-working city banker, is not considered trustworthy these days. Oh, no, I didn't mean that. This is no good. I've really got his back up. Really got what? Did I read that wrong? Or juror 3 shouts at me, "My lord!" Juror number 3, what is the meaning of this? My mind is made up, my lord. Completely and utterly made up. Made up about what? Also, what did I just say in the other? I've really got his back up. Okay, never mind. I don't like the stinking rich. Never have. They're always up to something or other that they shouldn't be. Every one of them. Eat the rich. And that little leprechaun of a man is no exception. Well, he can't fool me. There's no point in wasting time listening to any more of this. That's my opinion on the matter, anyway. Hold it! That is precisely what I was about to say. As the foreman of the jury, it's my duty to set a good example to my fellow jurors. No, man, we can't have a guilty verdict. We still have, 7 cases. What is happening here?
Let me see. Ah, yes. It seems that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts.
With fire?
Apparently, yes. White for innocence and black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one they each cast a ball of fire into the great scales of justice, as we saw a moment ago.
I'm surprised this courtroom isn't set in fire. These guys have awesome aim to hit those scales. So if those enormous scales fall completely to the black side, does that mean...
Let's do our very best to make sure that doesn't happen.
Ugh. Now I'm even more worried than I was before.
Very well. The court acknowledges the change in the jury's stance. Counsel for the defense, please continue with your cross-examination.
This is a nightmare.
Hold it!
He stabbed him, you say? And you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you?
Yes, that's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing a little gent sitting next to the fellow that was stabbed. I'd been thinking about a new hat design, you see, so I was just gazing absent-mindedly around. But then I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking right out from his belly, that huge great knife.
A grim sight indeed.
That didn't help me at all. The jury looked like they're even more convinced by my client did it than they were before.
That appears to have made everyone even more dubious that Mr. McGilded is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions.
Mr. First.
Oh, yes, sir.
Is this the knife you saw?
Oh, good grief, yes, that's it. The very one, sir. Is that?
Yes, counsel. This is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake through the heart.
That is the blade of considerable size, counsel.
It is, and furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. Please no. M for Magnus, perhaps, or McGilded, possibly. Take your pick. It seems this particular big name in London made a magnificent mistake.
Objection!
Baby slap! But, there are M's everywhere. Yes, like in Mason.
Objection!
There's his objection! This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder most certainly belonged to the accused. Ugh.
Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, Counsel.
Oh, this is bad. Murder weapon. A largest knife that was found lodged in the victim's abdomen. Its quality and fancy ornamentation suggest it must be quite valuable.
My lord, if you forgive the interruption.
Juror number 2. Go on.
Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman. And a gentleman's word would be sacrosanct.
I didn't pronounce that right.
However, those of us in service know we must accept hard truths.
Wait, what are you about to...
Dispose of the rubbish.
Eat the rich! Eat the rich! No!
I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. Hold it! I have painstakingly typed every word uttered here today and cross-referenced all the facts. As such, I am now in position to draw the only logical conclusion.
Not again.
That's 4 out of 6 jury members who proposed a guilty verdict. There are only 2 left.
We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse.
Nevertheless, what we need more than anything at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark.
I suppose I'll just have to keep pressing the witnesses, knowing that more sparks may well fly.
We mustn't give up hope that we'll uncover something that will give us a way to fight back.
But... Alright, I'll keep trying. I can't give up. I just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again.
Hold it!
What exactly did you see?
Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, collapsed on the floor he was.
And by the passenger, obviously you are referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker.
And then the other passenger had the knife in his hand, like this.
By the other passenger, obviously you are referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded.
And then he plunged it down like this, stabbing the other victim in the belly.
What? My lord, I wish to speak.
Yes, juror number 5. Do I take it that you too?
As the master of the London Guild of Coachmen, the idea of a murder being committed in one of the city's carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse has bolted, as they said. No, please just keep an open mind a little. Yep, now, Silver Blaze, the finish is in sight. Yeehaw. Oh shit. Not yeehaw. Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says.
Oh, thank you, sir. You're too kind, sir.
Ugh. This is too unkind, sir. Which now means that 5 jurors agree to condemn this man.
I'm just sewing away. I'm knitting.
Tally-ho, then! Madam Juror number 6.
Yes, dear. What can I do for you? Would you like me to knit you a new set of gloves?
You have heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand.
Oh, yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know.
Then pray tell, why are you yet to pronounce your leaning?
Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. Oh, yes, I should go ahead and knit a pair of gloves for dear old Beppo down there. I always go to the park at around this time of day and sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near where I live. McGilded Park, it's called. The gentleman donated it to the city, you know, to put a smile on Londoner's face, he said. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life.
He is always doing wonderful things for the city.
That's right. A man like that wouldn't stab someone, surely. Mother, maybe go to McGilded Public Library later and borrow some more books.
Oh god, there's a library after him. Who brings kids to this? How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds? Do you people not know what kind of man Magnus McGildick really is? There's the theme! What kind of man is he? The philanthropist Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls.
What? Stone the crows.
McGilded lends money at extortionate rates of interest so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything. Their own. Oh, he takes everything they own. He is a vulture that preys on the weak.
I've never heard any mention of that before.
Your facilities haven't deserted you, I'm sure, madam. So has this thought not crossed your mind? Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own? Oh man, his theme is so good. What possible reason could this man have had to make use of a public omnibus service?
Ah.
Oh dear. You're not saying that... The victim, a poor brickmaker, had next to nothing to his name, save considerable financial liability. It will come as no surprise that his creator was the accused. Creditor, Magnus McGilded. But let it be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed was the final repayment date for his debts.
Ooh, good gracious.
The brickmaker was destitute. He had lost his house. He had not a shilling with which to pay his debts. And in the end, this pitiful soul had the very last thing he owned taken from him. His life. Doubts for debts! By the merciless philanthropist pretender, Magnus McGilded. I don't believe it. I think I might revert back to the old Baroque voice. I can't think of something right now. If I might add something briefly. Mr. Sato. You claim that the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilded. But where is the evidence to support your claim? Hold on, I must pour some wine because I'm not being spoken to by the defense, but the judicial assistant. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollow chalice in a court of law.
Aha! There it is! Lord Van Zieg's hollow chalice!
Oh, How can this be considered acceptable? But I find myself in unexpectedly good humor. I had heard ladies from the Far East could show great courage, but I didn't expect to experience it myself.
As judicial assistant to the defense, I simply doing my job.
What a pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's ledger, which details all monies loaned by the accused. You will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside.
Oh,
Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discordancy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time.
A marvelous toast, Counsel. I will gladly accept this new evidence.
Debtor's ledger has been entered into the court record. Oh, wait, that's the wrong thing. Catalog people have borrowed money from the defendant at high rates of interest. It includes the victim, who owed 20 guineas. Ooh, that's a lot of guineas.
Ah, yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum.
And the accused made quite certain he had ample recompense.
Well, I suppose I should stop knitting these sets of... Oh, wait. I should stop knitting this sweater for Mr. McGilded. It would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes.
Regrettably, madam, that is the modus operandi of the accused.
And it's such a petty little part, too. Pretty. What a scoundrel.
Sad knitting.
still. Maybe it's all for the best.
Wait a minute. Let's think about this a little.
I don't stand for nonsense. Oh yes, I'll go ahead into my prison outfit. What color should the stripes be? Pink, blue, or just your typical black?
That was it. The last juror's decision. I don't know why, I just like grandma.
According to this Encyclopedia of British Law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here.
The final verdict. It's over then.
Oh! There's a footnote, though.
A footnote?
However, the defense...
All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement in this case.
Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision.
According to the laws of this country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections.
Stress! Stress! Mr. Sato, just tell me one thing.
Oh, yes?
You were in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What did it say next?
Oh, yes, of course. One moment. When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point.
AKA, closing argument was what it was in the Japanese version. A summation examination?
Objection!
A summation examination? From which century was that tome you have there been resurrected? Judging from the binding, I would say that book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, and certainly no longer practiced. But it's not illegal. So you're out of luck.
Oh.
What even is it, Miss Sasato? This so-called summation examination.
Oh, one moment and I'll read about it.
I appreciate the entire courtroom just being patient about this. You would even demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails. Typical Nipponese. Oh, you be quiet, Baroque.
All right, Mr. Naruhodo. I think I understand. It seems that under this procedure, we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury.
To do what exactly?
Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decision. It says here that, if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed.
Make them reverse their decisions.
Yes, in times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination to attempt to influence the jury's decision. But that procedure became something of a formality with no practical benefit, really. So it rather fell out of use.
I wonder why.
Because it was devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age.
Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked.
What are you suggesting? Damn the Nipponese!
I am suggesting that although it may be antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo?
I mean, we have 7 more cases, so we might as well do it, right? A summation examination. Our last possible option. Do we assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat? Yeah, we do it. Look, man, it's the end of the line. We're gonna try everything. The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord.
Objection!
Brooks just like, really? London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
Sir, I think summation examination was like, what, before your time? I don't know. But if it's our right, it's our right. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. He just wants to go home and take care of his bats in his office.
The defense petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with the summation examination.
This is madness.
Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready?
What? Well, I'm not, there was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so...
All members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision.
On what grounds?
You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty.
Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot.
This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before.
I don't really hold with all these justifying lark. That seems to have thrown the jurors off.
It seems none of them have experienced this before.
All right, the summation examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for to turn this trial around.
So be it then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant, Magnus McGilded, guilty of this most serious crime.
Judicial findings. Let's hear the jurors' contentions. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him.
I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory. It seems 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence.
He stuck the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen.
I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion.
Magnus McGilty! You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years.
The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor. It's beggar's belief.
Wait, hold on. On the floor?
I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they?
Well, let's see what we can do. We need to get these 6 people to change their minds. I'll have to throw everything I can at them and use some very persuasive language.
Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works.
Oh? I thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant.
Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. But then, they've reached their conclusion by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become.
Then what on earth am I supposed to do?
Oh, dear. I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo.
Right. I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work, then?
Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments.
What do you mean?
Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they are complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together.
And that's the way to break them down, you mean?
Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, we then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other.
I see. So it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for. In a way, then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination.
Oh, yes, I suppose you're right.
Find contradictions in their statement and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. Double slap! I have to pull this off. I got you, Naruhodo, I think.
Can we start the proceedings, Counsel? I would ask you to take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal.
Yes, my lord. Okay, Naruhodo, I'll do my best if I can remember what we were supposed to do. The defense's rebuttal. I'm gonna press everything is what I'm gonna do. Certainly, the testimonies we've heard suggest the victim and Mr. McGilder were alone inside the carriage. Precisely my point. But could there be some other explanation? Something we haven't considered yet. Such as?
Well, perhaps that's something we could, all work out together now.
Now listen here. Maybe you don't know how things work around here because you're from foreign climes? But we're here to form our opinions as individuals, and I have. Ugh.
Oh dear. He doesn't appear to be in the mood to consider an alternative point of view, does he?
No. I'm gonna have to pit the jurors against one another, like Susato-san said. Finding contradictions in these 6 people's assertions is the only way I'm going to succeed.
Hold it!
But does his ability to recall his takings that night really tell us how trustworthy the man is?
I manage all his lordship's cash affairs, so I'm very particular when it comes to accounts.
I see.
A single penny can mean the difference between life and death, after all, can it?
That's a saying in your country?
My point is, a man who minds his figures is a man you can trust. Those of us in service would swear to that, sir.
Does that bench really need any more polishing?
So if the good driver says that he saw McGilded in the act, I don't doubt him. The only task left to do today is disposing of the rubbish.
Ah, now wait a minute. One of the other jurors mentioned something about money, I think.
Now would be a very good time to listen carefully to the jurors' statements again, Mr. Naruto. If you notice an inconsistency in what 2 different jurists are saying,
I should expose it by pitting them against each other. Yes, let's see if I can do just that. This guy and Granny, they've got different stabbing positions here. Careful, you could hurt somebody with that. You're a fine one to talk. What of that sword hanging from your waist, No, that's just my battered soul. Oh no! Well, anyway, I despise anyone with too much money. They're all the same, all stabbing some brickmaker or other behind the scenes. You mark my words. That seems very unlikely, doesn't it? Are you mad, man? We know that small shorty is a rotten Shylock. Well, yes, that does seem to be the case, but...
Mr. Naruhodo, please, be careful what you say.
He's been trying to squeeze money out of us less fortunate. Then as far as I'm concerned, if he's been trying to squeeze money out of us less fortunate, then as far as I'm concerned, he's as guilty as sin. The man can hang and... Damn it, my knife is stuck. Come to think of it, didn't one of the other jurors have something to say about the defendant's underhanded activities?
If you thought of something, Mr. Naruhodo, don't let it go. Test your theory.
Pit the 2 jurors whose statements seem to be contradictory against each other. No time like the present to use X to pit them against each other. Oh, I'll never get anywhere. Okay, I know. Just let me press. I want to press everyone. What have you been doing all this time?
What have you been doing all this time?
There. I should have thought it was obvious. I am recording everything that takes place as part of these proceedings. And what have you learned from that? For example, at this moment in time, the judge has used his gavel 11 times in toto. The prosecution has snorted nervously at your remarks 7 times in toto. And, I might add, each time you have goped, you have gopped. Gop, not goped, what the frick is that's not a word? Each time you have gopped like a simpleton. Thank you. And what's the point exactly? I love that, like, Asogi's armband is just a little too big for him, so he just kind of needs to adjust it all the time. So, anyway, madam, are you able to explain why you think the defendant is guilty?
That is a conclusion I have drawn as a result of the copious notes I have typed.
Clearly, but I'm asking you to explain why you've drawn that conclusion. Dude, he's gonna get more ripped.
Please don't distract me. It makes it extremely hard to concentrate on my note-keeping.
That is going nowhere. This is going nowhere. This is the money guide. That's how much it costs to take the omnibus? That's right. As the guildmaster, I decided to set a policy for all drivers across the city. One fare no matter which bus you take, or how far you're going. We have to compete with the rise of the motor car, you see. Us coachmen have to make a stand together. Motor cars, you say? Yes, and this murder on one of our buses is extremely damaging to our cause. It's beyond the pale. It'll lead to a decline in passengers. You mark my words. And it's all that rascal's fault. He has to pay. Is it the crime or his buses he's more worried about? Anyway, every member of my guild is reliable and trustworthy. So if the driver says he saw him do it, that fellow in the dock is as guilty as sin.
Hold it!
I really think you should stop waving that needle around.
You heard what the good coachman said before, didn't you? The hideous man stabbed the poor fellow, just like this.
Yes, that's what he said. You're right.
McGilded Park is such a lovely little place, too. I've always enjoyed resting my legs there while I get on with my knitting. And I had thought that anyone who donated such a delightful place must be a fine fellow indeed.
Or they're just dodging their taxes.
I suppose I was wrong. Whoever would have thought he was a miserable, murdering moneylender with not a scrap of remorse?
Oh, help. She's as sure can be that he's guilty now.
The old lady certainly seems to know her mind, doesn't she? So, we just need to find two jurors with contradictory statements and pit them against each other.
Right now, Susato is mimicking Naruhodo.
Which is so much easier said than done. Is that perhaps what you were just thinking?
How did you know?
Well, I took the liberty of doing some research in case you happen to find yourself in just a situation. So I read what I found out. It's a little long, I'm afraid.
No! I know how to do this. I don't feel like going through tutorial.
If I have to rely on advice right from the start, how will I get on later? No, I need to work this out for myself now. Is that perhaps what you were just thinking?
How did you know?
Well, that sort of attitude is most admirable, Mr. Naruhodo. I know what I have to do.
Let's listen to those assertions one more time. Grabbing X. Okay, we got you.
Objection!
Those two statements are completely contradictory.
What? Explain, counsel, post haste. Oh, dearie me, I was only knitting a jumper for my other half.
What is all this claptrap? What's this contradictory even mean, I ask you? We heard from more than one witness that they allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3.
What? Can't you see that I'm trying to get my knife out again?
I love his walking animation. How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it?
Ha! Want to test me, do you?
It was like this. Stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up, just like the prim banker said.
Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true.
Now then, juror number 6.
Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do for you, young man?
How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam?
Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so.
Now don't move. Take a look at these two jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he collapsed on the floor.
Well, I never. They're stabbing in totally different directions.
What?
Bless my stitches. What a muddle.
What this tells me, or tell us, is that there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth.
Oh.
But why? Why the dickens would they lie? I don't know that yet, but what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out. We may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen? In all good conscience. Objection theme!
Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide people telling lies.
The scales. I don't believe it. Hold it! Wait! Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him in his black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on all of us. If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, Dark Jinx. Dark Jinx? Me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if the two witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he was sat next to him on the omnibus. And this young dandy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor and then the Shylock stabbed him again. Sir? He's only been stabbed once. And this old lady saw him do it. Well, what do you have to say? What's to say it didn't happen like that? It can't. Who are you calling a dandy, sir? Why, I should take this knife to you.
Who are you calling old? Why, I should take this needle to you.
They're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Did the two witnesses see two different moments of the same crime? Out of the question. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman. What is it, you dark jinx? Come on, out with it! What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. What? What are you talking about, man? How can you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job. Yes, I'm only doing my job too. As a foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So, where's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. I say the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime. If you say that's out of the question, show me proof. It looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Alright, let's give him the autopsy. Some irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. It's out of the question that the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime, as proven by the autopsy.
Take that!
This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen. Only once. Only once? It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it. I'm ruining the moment. Which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen two different times. Oh, bloody knife. All right, I concede defeat. Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. You did it.
If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue.
2 more. Actually, there is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. Yeah, his knife did disappear.
Then that's where you must strike next.
So I need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's another contradiction in their assertion.
Exactly. You can do it.
Thanks, Usato.
Well, the scales of justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavy on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination. I'm no lover of the rich, but I despise liars even more. Innocent is my call, for now at least.
I want to see their new statements.
Dear me, you can't make accusations based on lies. I wonder if the poor man is innocent after all.
We're pitting this guy. So, it's supposed to be 4 pence, but there's only 4 passengers. And it ended up totaling to 20 pence. So they're missing someone here.
Objection!
Or the fares are wrong. Those 2 statements clearly contradict each other.
They do? Explain yourself, Conso.
Me? Oh dear, what have I said?
I swear on Silver Blaze's maiden name, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. And according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right. I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. How convenient. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. That it is, a fair and convenient single price, just the way London's carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. Can you guys math? In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, then? Why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication...
Oh, it would be 16 pence.
Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are still different. The figures are different. By 4 pence, in fact, or precisely, 1 person's fare. I love that pose. His confident pose. When he's confident, he's holding onto a Sogi's katana and it's just, oh, I love it. Symbolism.
1 person's fare.
Yes, in other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there was another passenger we've heard nothing about.
Good gracious!
And screenshot. This can't be right. The coachmen of the guild are good, honest men. One and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword. But people are very fickle. The figures your coachman claims most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus.
All right then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end,
Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire onto the innocent side of the set of scales.
Now hold your horses there, coachman. We were all in agreement. Why do we have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. Oh, Beppo's in trouble. Run, Beppo, run! Oh, this is all very irritating.
Begging your pardon, sir, I'm going to do the same.
For the love of Mike, not you as well!
A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters.
Oh, really?
I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again.
Wait, that... Naruto's like, I did it, but also like, I'm scared. 4 jurors are now leaning to not guilty.
We've done it, Mr. Naruhodo. We've won.
What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. But we've had a consensus. I said shut your trap. I know a liar when I see one. And if that chap ever dares to cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take this razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. I love this juror. Please tell me he's a barber.
Well, in a quite remarkable turn of events, the defense summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate, and the trial must continue.
Whew! We did it!
I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witness to return to their places. And I call upon all of you to continue to pursue the truth.
Dodged a bullet for now.
So, Lord Van Seeks, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please.
I need a drink. Oh, no, he's going to break that. Oh, he's going to break that. Yep. Having savored the rich aroma of the carmine contents of this hallowed chalice, it may seem crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy.
Lord Van Seeks.
Ooh. Is it cold in here or is it just me? Oh no, I'm feeling cold too. I'm gonna take a drink of water right now, actually. As your antiquated tome no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. So I honor a deathly silence and listen to the charade. It seems I overestimated the intelligence of the jury. Well, no matter. There's nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No. And why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence, after all? So, let us proceed to the next round of battle. The cape's coming off! Now we're serious. Bring forth the witness once more. I would not blame Naruhodo if he's shitting in his pants right now. Witnesses, I trust you heard the summation examination we have just had to endure.
Oh, yes, sir, that I did, sir.
Of course I heard it. Yes, sir, I heard it.
You, sir, on the end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo? Yes, sir, my lord, sir. If it transpires that in your previous testimony you were attempting to veil the presence of a 5th passenger on your omnibus, you will be found guilty of perjury. You are advised to bear that in mind, sir. Oh, medio. Now then, witnesses, I hereby call on you to testify before the court again. You explain the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense summation examination.
Yep, it's called perjury. It just never gets executed in this game, ever. Anyway, actually, get the music going. Various misgivings. I want to look at the ledger. This portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets of London's gentry.
Oh dear. Do you really think we ought to look inside?
I mean, why not? Well, it's not as though we know any London's gentry personally, is it? Apart from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder...
I assure you we will not find Mr. Sholmes' name inside.
Well, let's see what we find. Lots of squiggles!
Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it?
Well, I suppose they're probably not all gentlemen at all, are they? After all, not everyone in this country is well off.
Oh, goodness!
What is it?
Look at this! Do you see the name here?
Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually. He's one of the witnesses, Naruhodo.
Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment.
Oh, yes, of course, the banker. Why is his name in here? He borrowed 20 guineas, did he? Whoa! And look, the repayment date is fast approaching.
It's possible that this is just a coincidence, of course, but this could be very useful information.
Debtor's ledger. Among the defendant's list of debtors is Bruce Fairplay, who would have been due to repay his loan imminently. That's important information. I'm gonna hold on to that for later. Oh, wait, we didn't check the knife either.
That part is the sheath, isn't it? Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo?
Huh? Oh, sorry, yes, I just don't really like blades.
Oh. Those don't seem like the words of a man with a large katana slung from his waist.
I was about to say, Naruhodo, you have a katana. That's not a blade. That's Kazuma's soul. Okay. Anyway, there's no sense in delaying it. Let's see what the blade looks like. Ew. Ugh, that looks a lot like blood.
Surely it's blood. The victim's.
Ugh. An Englishman's blood looks a lot like a Japanese man's blood.
Did you think it wouldn't?
Sorry, it's just that we've only just arrived here in Great Britain. I'm finding it a little hard to adjust.
Yes, I do understand.
Poor Naruhodo. An ornate letter M. Undeniably Mr. Magnus McGilded's initial.
And it's beautifully gilded, too. It must be very valuable, I should think. What is it?
Look at this M. If you turn it upside down, it becomes a W. This could change everything.
A W?
Yes, this is one of those, turnabout cases. I'm sure of it.
I'm afraid I don't know at all. But what I'm sure of it is that this is an M.
Oh. Well, that idea was quickly quashed. I'm sorry, Phoenix Wright isn't here to save your butt. Anyway.
I only carried for 4 passengers that night, I swear. But,
Well, I, for one, was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. Oh.
He fiddled us on the fare, he did. And then I saw that bird-cutting sight as well. It's all too much.
I tell you, I saw McGildick stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands.
Yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes.
You think so now? You're not sure now?
Counsel, make sense of this for me, please.
The phantom fifth passenger, conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friend, never existed. The confusion has arisen from the coachman's sly little cousinage. Beppo, explain yourself.
I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster.
The guild's fare is 4 pence across the board. You know that. Am I to understand that you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare?
It's so cold, and the last run of the day is always half empty.
You have been dishonest, coachman.
I'm sorry.
I know, they're tiny and cute. You're a disgrace, Beppo. A disgrace! Yet your selfish actions have brought dishonor on the entire guild. And dishonor on your cow.
If I may, sir, I had to pay 10 pence on the bus just last week.
What? 10 pence?
4 passengers at 5 pence each is, yes, 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I just can't make the results out differently.
No, that figures.
Well, it would appear that one of the affirmation misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please.
You've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely. No. Okay. I can't.
Hold it!
So there were only 4 passengers on your carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4 pence fare. Is that right? I mean, I'm pretty sure he doesn't make a lot of money as his, boss up there on the juror.
It's impossible to make the last run of the day pay. I was so cold, it was all I could do to stop myself passing out.
I think he also mentioned that he had to use up all 20 of his pence just to make himself warm up or something at one point. Like he had to use up all of his money for food or something. I'm getting chill brains just listening to you.
That was terrible. So I wanted to give myself a pat on the back for even keeping the bus running. Doesn't a dedicated coachman deserve an extra penny per passengers?
You're digging a deeper hole for yourself here. If only there had been a 5th passenger on the omnibus that night. Then we would have had another suspect. Oh!
Hold it!
Does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5 pence instead of 4?
Well, I paid 5 pence too, sir.
And I just told you that I did.
A flat fare of 5 pence across the board.
It's not something to be proud of. The so-called discrepancy my learned friend identified was nothing of the sort. Much like the phantom killer you so desperately needed gone, dead and buried. I'd have been happy if it had never existed in the first place, if it had ever existed. Okay.
Hold it!
This blood-curdling sight, you mean the murder, I presume?
Yes, sir. A loathsome sight. No one should have to witness the horror in the eyes of a man the moment his life is taken. Oh, well, not exactly, sir. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gent was stabbed.
Good gracious, really?
We have another witness who did, however. The banker has already testified to it. But Mr. First didn't actually see the point at which the victim was killed.
that may turn out to be very significant. I heard the banker jank next to me take a sharp intake of breath, see? And that's when I looked through the glass. That's when I saw that horrible blade poking out of his belly, all covered in blood. Every time I see a knife now, I can't help screaming, even when I'm eating. Oh no.
Hold it!
So you saw the defendant, Mr. McGildick, stabbing the victim, Mr. Mason, who was sitting next to him. That's what I said, isn't it? It was bothering me before. This was. For a brief moment, he hesitated before answering the question. Anyway, there was only the two of them inside the carriage, wasn't there? There's been much talk of a fifth passenger, but as yet, zero evidence. Then what are we wasting all this time for, eh? And black and white. It's black and white. The man's guilty. Something about Mr. Fairplay's testimony just jars with me. I wish I could work out what it was. Dark Age of the Omnibus.
Hold it!
Earlier, you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Oh yes, that's right. You said that the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife in an ice pick grip. I suppose. I might have, yes, put the cart before the horse, maybe.
What's this?
Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving the horses when I heard a scream from the seats on the roof deck. Oh, I expect that was me, sir. That's when I turned around, yes. Yes, I saw it through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor and the knife was sticking up out of his midriff. That's right, and the fellow holding the handle was the famous man, yes. So in short, you didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed at all. I really thought that I did, but when I go over it again in my head, no, I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment of the stabbing, did I? In fact, now that I come to think of it, it must have already happened when I heard the scream. Of course! That goes without saying. But I really wish he had said it earlier. The autopsy report makes it quite clear that the victim was stabbed only once, which means the banker was a witness to the fatal wound that ended Mr. Mason's life. Not long ago, this trial very nearly came to an end. Somehow we've managed to keep our chances alive here. I can't waste this cross-examination. I have to use it to bring some new facts to light. If you're not careful when you press these witnesses, the danger is that the jury will end up believing something unhelpful, as they did before. Maybe. But we can't let the fear of that happening stop us from uncovering important new information. Yes, you're so right. I need to pay careful attention here. I don't want to miss even a flicker of reaction among those witnesses. Remember, if you happen to spot one of the witnesses reacting in a strange way, don't hesitate to pursue them as to the reason. I didn't pursue him there because I wanted to see what else Beppo was saying.
Hold it!
And now you can hear what he was saying.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me. I know what you're thinking. He did really see the exact moment the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Eh? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I might be able to extract some new information from him if I answer him cleverly. Could he have just happened to see the exact moment the crime was committed? Some days are like that. What the heck? Well, it is a little hard to believe, certainly. Unless you spend your time peeping through a skylight on the top of an omnibus, that is. Oh, peeping? I'm a respectable city banker, I'll have you know. And I know what I saw. I remembered as clear as a Ballaric day. It was a grim scene. I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Some days are like that. Oh, excuse me if I was getting a little hot under the collar there, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I could do that, all right. I'll tell you just how grim it was. Okay, thanks. Do you think I forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands after that butcher stabbed the man?
Hold it!
There's not much blood on the glove. Blood-soaked? Amen. Well, perhaps soaked is laying it out a little thick, but anyways, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. And you saw that from the roof through the skylight? Well, the skylight's reasonably large, so I had a pretty good view. And there was a lamp on inside the carriage as well. So I'm quite sure of what I saw. Huh. This banker's latest statement. I feel sure there's something not quite right about it. When you feel something doesn't add up, Mr. Naruhodo, that's when you should have a good look through the court record, which I gotta do now because I'm not sure what the heck I'm putting there. I actually don't know what I'm supposed to present. Something has to be presented there, I just don't know what. I don't think he was blood-soaked, though. Like, his hand's not... He's not blood-soaked, but what am I presenting? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna save the game. Because I don't know what I'm supposed to present at this point. Okay, we'll go with the gloves then.
Objection!
Okay, thank you. It was either that or the photo. Blood-soaked hands? Well, I admit that soaked might be laying it a little thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. Look at him with his confident pose. What? Here are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Ah, yes. Right. And there certainly does appear to be a sizable dark color stain there. But as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. Ah! Now he's a chipmunk chewing on his cane. Okay. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. Ugh! But, no, that can't be right.
So you're a liar here, then?
Ugh! That's right, you are quite clear about it. You said, "Her!" It was both hands. Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed, but is that really the truth?
Objection!
It was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands, it was only one, but the fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused.
Objection!
No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated that he saw blood all over both hands, which means there's a strong possibility that this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Ugh! Why? Why? I'm a city banker, for pity's sake. My word should be the gold standard. I'm a gentleman, not some gutter snipe. Upstanding members of society don't perversiate. He's claiming to have no reason to lie. But is that really the case?
Mr. Naruhodo, if we had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay would be lying, it could turn the tide in this trial completely.
Something to show this man has a compelling reason to lie in his testimony. I have evidence. My lord.
Yes, counsel.
The defense is ready to present evidence.
By Jove, are you sure?
Yes. Evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had reason to lie in his testimony. Ah! His shouts are getting louder!
Very well. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe money to Mr. McGilded. Yes, a list of innocent victims, crippled by the accused's extortion. Hi, KV. The point is, among the names of these debtors is your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay.
What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused?
No, well, it's barely worth being called a debt. It's 20 guineas! According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas. Not an inconsiderate sum of money, wouldn't you say? Well, what of it? Let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your debt in that case?
Oh, these documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties.
Guinea is a lot back then. They're like gold.
Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist.
Cease to exist?
Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to have seen something you never in fact saw, in a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant? I'm just gonna keep chewing on my cane!
Order! Mr. Bruce Fairplay.
Yes, my lord.
Let me ask you again. And be aware that your answer may have most serious implications upon your future, sir.
Goodbye to your bank job.
Did you or did you not see the precise moment in time at which the defendant is alleged to have thrust a knife into the victim?
Fairplay! Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. All right, now let's not make a melodrama out of this. Well, it says the guy eating his cane. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. A pinch? But it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on McGilded's hands. Both of them.
Objection!
And yet, only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have here as evidence, is stained. So you keep saying. Lady? I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. First.
Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself, as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think... Yes, I'm almost sure that it was on both of his hands, not just one. What? Now there's two witnesses claiming this? What? Again, now we have two witnesses claiming this.
It would appear that we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear?
Like I said 2 hours ago. Yeah.
Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have shifted slightly at last.
Yes. I might finally have a chance to turn things around here. Oh. What the witnesses really saw. I don't even believe them. I don't believe this one. Oh, the music picked up. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbings transpired, if that matters. I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both of the attacker's hands with blood on them.
I didn't actually see anything myself, no. Not until I heard that scream.
Anyway, the fact remains there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage, or we all would have seen. Actually, there's a chance you can't see everything.
Well, lo and behold, in truth of fact, not one of you was witness to the crucial moment of the crime was perpetrated.
I apologize, my lord, but honestly, there was no one else inside that carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. That much incriminating evidence is tantamount to say we saw the man do it. That's really not what testimony is about. Let us examine the interior of the omnibus once more. The victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witnesses' accounts. In other words, there is no substantial nor significant change in the facts of this case.
Very well. Your cross-examination, please, counsel.
There's a blind spot. I'm pretty sure there's a blind spot. Yes, my lord. I don't think they could have seen the entire carriage. God, I love the cut-ins.
Hold it!
No, the evidence tells us otherwise. We have the gloves the defendant was wearing on the night in question in the court record. I'm well aware of that, sir, but nonetheless, I know what I saw and I stand by it. The man had blood on both his hands. He's defiant, even in the face of hard evidence. He's steadfastly refusing to admit that he might be mistaken about what he saw. But why? Your reasoning is dire. One hand or two, the salient point remains unchanged. Minutes after the grim crime, the victim's blood dripped guiltily from the accused's fingers.
Hold it!
Don't try to downplay this. Whether or not you saw the exact moment of the crime is a matter of fundamental importance, as well as you know. But for crying out loud, we all know that no one else could have possibly done it. I was just trying to save us all some time. You have a loan of 20 guineas outstanding with the defendant, do you not? Had you hoped to release yourself from that financial burden by ensuring the defendant was found guilty? Well, That's not entirely not what I was hoping for. I just lost a little guinea or 10 when I backed the wrong horse in the Derby. That's all. I was going to win it all back. There's a fixture this weekend that's a sure thing. It's gambling. You're probably not going to. A little guinea or 10? I'm a banker. No one bats an eye if I borrow a little spending money for the weekend.
I think you may have revealed rather more about your character than you bargained for, sir.
This witness' scruples are not on trial here. Proceed to the next witness. Is that really how it's supposed to work? I'm tired. I'm tired. You definitely saw that too. Blood on both hands.
Yes, sir. I mean, I know what you're going to say. Only one of Mr. McGildy's gloves has any signs of blood on it.
That's right.
The thing is, as far as I remember, sir, when I looked down and saw Mr. McGildy sitting beside the other fellow, I don't believe he was wearing any gloves, sir.
He wasn't wearing these gloves?
That's correct, sir, and I saw the blood on both his bare hands quite clearly.
It's true that the dark color stain on the dark leather gloves wouldn't have been easy to see. I should point out that the police officer who apprehended the accused on the night in question reported that there was no trace of blood on Mr. McGildy's gloved hands. There wasn't blood on his hands?
This is puzzling indeed.
This must be significant somehow. I'm sure of it.
Oh, no, I don't have to read that.
Hold it!
You didn't see anything.
Oh, yes, sir. That is to say, no, sir, I didn't. Very sorry about what I said before, sir.
Very sorry, yes. It was very vulgar of me to make up stories and say I saw him stab the man.
Would you agree, sir?
I know what you're insinuating, but I certainly wasn't making up stories. Still, to say you saw nothing isn't right either, is it?
No, sir, I saw nothing at all.
Mr. Beppo, you were driving your horses. At the very least, you must have enjoyed a good view of London streets, no? He was outside in the cold! Naruhodo! Oh, please, you didn't even see that?
It was so cold that night, you see. It was all I could do to keep from passing out, sir. Yes, my head was fairly frozen solid. Sorry to say, sir.
Holy crap, was his eyes closed? It would seem prudent to avoid travel on the last omnibus service of London's cold winter nights. Beppo!
Oh! His tiny eyes!
Hold it!
I think I need to present the omnibus to him. And everything you saw of the incident was through the skylight on the roof of the omnibus? That's right. It was fiercely cold that night, but the glass wasn't frosted over.
Oh yes, I remember I was shivering. It was so bitter.
Which rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place.
Well, I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Oh? Why not? It was locked from the inside. I tried knocking, but no one opened the door. It was locked? That's right, and it's a public bus service, for pity's sakes. That's not what I call fair play. Ha ha ha, he made a joke about his name.
Yes, I had exactly the same experience. I tried knocking, but the gent inside just gestured at me to clear off. So I had no choice but to climb up to the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below.
Well, I can assure you I wasn't just looking down, I was glaring, long and hard. And that's precisely why I can tell you with absolute confidence that if there was anyone else at all in that cabin, I would have noticed. Inquivocal, I would say. I'm not sure about these two witnesses. Could they really have seen everything inside the cabin through the skylight? They might have not been able to. I'm going back inside. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Can I pull this? This seat has a handle, it seems. This looks like all sorts of equipment that might be needed to keep the omnibus running. Feeding tubs, tools to repair wheels, blankets, horseshoeing tools. So it's a storage compartment for the coachman to keep his things, it seems. There doesn't seem to be any space for passengers to stow their luggage, that's for sure. Well, I don't imagine it would be very convenient for that purpose anyway. Anything else? Okay. Whoops. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. Okay, they might not have been able to. Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight in the floor of the upper deck. Is that right? That's right, yes. In that case, there is a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight for you. What? By golly, really? Obviously, at this stage, we can't say for sure. But the possibility cannot be denied that at the time of the incident, there could have been another passenger in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus.
Objection!
Enough hypothetical meandering, my Nipponese friend. The prosecution demands that you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is here, in the flesh.
Very well, I will uphold the prosecution's demand. You will identify the area on this cross-sectional plan of the omnibus. Where exactly in the omnibus are you suggesting that this potential extra passenger could have been situated?
Here?
Take that!
Both rows of seats on the roof face in the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means the visible part of the cabin, which passengers on the roof deck can see through the skylight, is as I've drawn here.
Ah!
That's right, my lord. As you can see, the seat opposite, the one on which the victim and his attacker was sitting, is obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting on that seat, it's quite possible that these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it. Ah!
Objection!
My lord, this is an outrage. Sorry. It's quite possible some phantom was sitting there. You Nipponese have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth with ambiguity. Don't mind me.
I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder.
Rejoinder?
In a British court of law, evidence is paramount. I cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. That is, unless you're able to put a name to this mysterious passenger to whom you allude.
Can you, Mr. Naruhodo? I honestly don't know. Who could it have been? Who could have been in the other seat, which was out of sight from the witnesses on the roof deck? I don't know. Ugh, I have literally no idea. But as proud citizens of the Japanese Empire, you will look to the sky and walk on, making sure all signs of tears are gone. That was a nice saying. Go on. This isn't just a case of going on, Mrs. Sato. All right then. I'll go on. My heart will go on. No. The defense would like to put forward a name. You are a fool. That response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notion of his own limitations. A toast to hard lessons not yet learned.
Let us not delay, Counsel. The defense is still to name the passenger in the other seat.
This could be it. This could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. On that night, on the night of the murder, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus that was obscured from view was... I think we're supposed to say him.
Take that!
Okay. The music stopped! I got it right. The passenger in the enclosed cabin that the witnesses on the roof deck failed to see has to have been Mr. Magnus McGilded. Mr. McGilded?
What are you talking about, Counsel? That's the name of the defendant.
Objection!
Okay, we're really pissed off Baroque. If I desecrate this chamber by smashing my hollow chalice, do forgive the discourtesy.
Lord Van Cheeks.
People talk of those tiny island nations in the Far East as having a learning and culture of their own. But I see they use the terms ill-advisedly. What are you trying to say? Let me explain in terms that even a student of an artless backwater such as yourself might understand. Ouch, thanks, Baroque. When the bloody scene unfolded, the victim and his assailant were sitting side by side. Multiple witnesses have attested to the fact. It's the very premise on which this case is built.
Objection!
But that premise may be wrong. What? If the victim really was sitting beside Mr. McGilded, it creates an inconsistency that can't be reconciled in any way.
What inconsistency, Counsel?
The defendant's gloves, my lord. Both witnesses made the same testimony. They claimed that there was blood on both hands of the person sitting next to the victim.
Objection!
Yet we know the truth to be otherwise. Only one glove bears the gory remains. I hope everyone in this chat understands the concept of character development, and we're not going to deal with dumb discourse I have to deal with all the time on Twitter when it comes to Baroque. And I'm going to claim it right now. You can dislike the character. Just don't be an asshole if other people like him. Yet as we know the truth to be otherwise, only one glove bears the gory remains.
Objection!
The point is, even in the defense of this irrefutable evidence, both witnesses have maintained their stance. Like, I really don't care if you don't like him. Like, that's fine. I have characters I don't like in this game either. But if other people like certain characters you don't, that's their business, and you don't need to be a jerk about it.
Yes, their testimony remains unchanged.
Exactly. They both adamantly swear that they clearly remember seeing blood on both hands of the assailant. In short, their memory of events is correct, and their testimony reveals the truth. Oh no, you're fine. I mean, I've seen worse. Some people just forget how to act like a decent human being, and it's... ugh. I'm just reminded of the stuff I've seen, and it's just really frustrating to see it, because it's just like, man, you guys waste too much time talking about stuff you hate and picking on people for stuff that you don't like. Maybe you should just talk about things you like all the time, because, God. It was somebody else sitting besides the victim that night. A third party we have yet to identify. I'm just talking based on what I've... Yeah, exactly what Dixity is saying right there. There's a lot of issues going around with Baroque, and I understand why people wouldn't like him. I get it. But, like, that's fine. I just want to remind people that you need to understand that not everyone will dislike him. There are going to be people who like him too, and that's also okay too, because they're not real. So, like I said, I'm only ranting about it because I've seen it I've seen this been a constant issue when it came to Baroque. And I'm just saying, I trust all of you guys in chat know how to be adults and understand that people have varying favorite characters. That's pretty much all I'm saying. Because, like, I've seen a lot of things. And the victim's blood was on that passenger's hands. Both of them.
Objection!
And who was this third party? Obviously, the true culprit.
Extraordinary.
And I gotta be honest, when I initially played this game, when it was only the first game, I didn't particularly have any strong opinions towards Baroque. It was more or less the case of, he's kind of there, and I was like, oh yeah, I can kind of see why people don't like him. But I didn't have any strong feelings toward Baroque in the first game, because we weren't really given too much about him.
Order! Order! What exactly are you postulating?
You know, and I can say he was a huge asshole in the first game, because he was! The defense's postulation is just that. Nothing more than conjecture. The witness have clearly stated that they saw the accused. But when elaborating on his testimony, Mr. Fairplay said the two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. Yes. The tops of their hats were obscured by the roof. I could see the rest of them, though. Yes, that's right. Both gents were most certainly hatted. Hatters do tend to notice such things, sir.
And what particular styles of hat did the two gentlemen sport, Mr. First?
You can't answer that, can you?
I'm afraid I don't remember.
And you call yourself a hatter? The style of hat makes no difference. There was no third passenger in that cabin. How can you be sure? Because if there had been, the accused, Mr. McGilded, would undoubtedly have offered to dispose the fact. Unless, that is, you are proposing an even more preposterous explanation. That the accused failed even to notice the presence of the true culprit in the very cabin in which he traveled. That... What is going on with this trial? I forgot how ridiculous Case 3 was. He's right. Case 3 is so good, though. If there was another person traveling in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus, it's inconceivable that Mr. McGilded would have been unaware of it. I would say, like, of all the cases in the first game, I think with the first game, this one, I think it peaked at Case 3, and then it kind of starts to dip after this. Like, I think 1, 2, and 3 were very strong cases in the first game, and then it kind of dips a little after that. Case 5 is fine, but, like, it just doesn't peak as much as what Case 3 is.
Order! There is clearly a simple solution to this problem.
Bring the accused, Mr. McGilded, to the stand.
Well, what say you, counsel?
The prosecution objects, my lord.
On what grounds?
As a suspect, he will have already made a full statement to the police. But what if there's some reason why he's unable to speak freely? Yeah, you're right. Actually, both Case 3s for both of the Great Ace Attorney games are really strong, which is really ironic. In my opinion of Case 4, and I understand people not liking it, I think it's a nice case in a sense of it's a good break case because you were given 3 very intense cases back to back that Case 4 was more of a necessity to be there. And what I find is that I enjoy Case 4 the first time I go through it. Because after you play it one time, it does start to feel a little tedious afterwards, if you have repeated plays of it. Magnus McGilded is no uneducated ruffian. If it indeed turns out the man has been withholding information, you can be sure it would have been a most deliberate act.
Counsel for the defense, what is your opinion?
My lord, should we ask Mr. McGilded to testify? Yes. Yes, we need to hear what he has to say in order to find out the truth. The defense would like to call Mr. McGilded to the stand.
In that case, I would like to hear the opinion of the jury.
Yes, I need a little time to consider this. We have no time.
If you ask me, I think we should hear what Mr. McGilded has to say.
Get that man out here, I say. Let me knife him.
It would be utterly illogical not to hear his testimony.
When something needs doing, get it done. That's how I run things at the guild.
Hearing what the patron of my favorite little park has to say. Oh yes, that would be lovely.
Yes, the jury says the man must be her. Pfft, you just listen to everyone else.
Very well. The court will hear the defendant's testimony. Bailiff, show the defendant to the stand at once.
Now, maybe what actually happened that night will finally become clear. Will it, Naruhodo? Will it?
Let's proceedings be resumed. Mr. McGilded, have you been listening to the discourse of the day?
Discourse of the day! Boy!
To be sure I have, my lord.
There are now two matters on which the court desires to hear from you. The first is whether or not there was a third party with you in the omnibus cabin as proposed by the defense. The second is that if such a person was indeed present, why did you conceal that fact from the police?
Begad, no. 'Tis not in my nature to hide anything at all.
Just answer the question, please.
The truth of the matter is, I've been desperate about this all along. Do I tell you all or keep my mouth shut?
Tell us what, Mr. McGilded?
The fine fella representing me is absolutely right. In the carriage on the night with myself and the other man, there was another passenger.
It's true?
Aye, and 'twas me who helped the little urchin get away after it all happened.
You what?
Rubble.
No, Magnus McGilded. That convenient excuse can't save you now.
I'm truly sorry, so am I, Lord Van Zeeks. I'm sure you'll be wanting to know why I said nothing when I was taken in by the police. Oh, I do be having a very good reason, I assure you.
Which was?
Well, the little child was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and not in any way involved, you see.
What?
If the police had known the wee one was there, they'd have assumed she'd done it. They'd have hauled her into this here courtroom, just like myself. I was only trying to spare her that. Young hearts and young minds are easily damaged, my lord.
And who was this young child of whom you speak?
That I don't know.
You don't know?
Aye, well, the wee thing just happened to be in the carriage that night. I never saw her before or since.
Objection!
We have absolutely no reason to believe this man. The prosecution calls for the witness's statements to be disregarded by the court.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the urchin isn't here in this courtroom as we speak, listening to the proceedings.
What? Ah! Smoke! Fire! There's a fire! Look! Someone's trying to get away! I can't see anything because there's smoke! What's going on?
Be careful, Mr. Naruhodo. Cover your face.
Bailiff, don't let the accused escape. Secure the omnibus.
I hereby call an emergency recess. Bailiff, ensure the defendant is in custody and clear the courtroom.
Fire in the courtroom! Fire in the courtroom! We were hurriedly removed from the smoke-filled courtroom by the bailiff, amid scenes of chaos as people stumbled over one another in their desperation to flee the chamber. The other passengers said, "Ninja." We had no idea what was happening. All we knew was that, for the time being, at least, the trial was suspended. I made it! I did it! To be continued! Oh my god. That smoke was far too convenient, though.